everything is awesome. You know what else is awesome? It is Wuthering Heights, the masterpiece by Emily Bronte. And you know what's even more awesome than Wuthering Heights, a masterpiece by Emily Bronte? The most awesomeness of it is not that trash and garbage that is the new movie. I mean, it doesn't even stand on its own from what I understand. And for once, I am not going to even try to see the source material, rather the film that I am criticizing. It is so vile that I can't even repeat it on YouTube. And I'm used to some really sick stuff, but this one takes the cake. It really, really does. And they're just besmirching Emily Bronte's memory by doing this. It is just a crime and disgusting and despicable. And it shows you maybe how sick a lot of people in Hollywood truly are, or rather in the filmmaking industry. But guess what we're going to do? We're on part 3. And does that mean chapter 3? I am not certain. Let me see. Indeed, we are, on chapter 3. We're going to be reviewing that today. The last time we were reading this work, why, poor Mr. Lockwood, who is dumber than a rock, he didn't understand how unwelcome can be. In the household of Wuthering Heights, he sees some evil that I don't think he's ever seen. There was a part where Heathcliff nearly smacks Catherine across the room. I mean, it's just horrible. The mental and physical abuse that is obviously present there, and he's starting to realize this was a really big mistake. However, he can't get home because of the weather and everything, so he is being ushered to bed by the servant, and off he goes. So while he's going upstairs, the servant is saying to hide the candle. Again, that you have to live in this kind of fear in your own household. Imagine being stuck in that kind of a situation back then. A lot of servants didn't have a choice. To not make a noise, for her master had an odd notion about the chamber she would put me in. This is first person with Lockwood. And never let anyone lodge there willingly. So why is she doing this? Well, maybe to be nice, but oh my gosh. We've already known what kind of a world these people are living in this house. And she's like, oh yeah, we need to be real quiet because the master doesn't want people here. And we already know how the master can behave. Craziness. I asked the reason. She did not know. She had only lived there a year or two. Aha, here we go. We've got the answer right here. She'd only been there a year or two. If she knew, there is no way in hell she would have let Heathcliff, rather Mr. Lockwood, or anybody into that room. She herself would never go into that room. Why, hello, everyone that's coming in. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses. We are reviewing Wuthering Heights. So here we go. The true story, not the sicko story. Though this story is crazy enough as it is, that's why it's so stupid. We got a nuttiness for it to be perfectly adaptable as it is. I guess they don't have the creativity. And there is a part of me that when they look at Wuthering Heights and think it's this sadomasochist, kinky story, this shows me they do not understand. They do not understand. Too stupefied to be curious myself, dude's tired. Oh, yeah, because they had the attack on the dogs attacked him. They laughed at him. He nearly got into a fist fight. I fastened my door and glanced around for the bed. Hell, I wouldn't just fasten the door. I would put a chair up next to it if I knew that Heathcliff did not want me in there. The whole furniture consisted of a chair, a clothes press. That's a place where you clean your clothes, I guess, and a large oak case with squares cut out near the top resembling coach windows. I looked inside and perceived it to be a singular sort of old-fashioned couch, very conveniently designed to obviate the necessity for every member of the family having a room to himself. Yeah, I'd want a room to myself in this sicko place too. In fact, it formed a little closet and the ledge of a window, which it enclosed, and it served as a table. That would be so cozy if it wasn't like crazy Wuthering Heights. My gosh, I want to be hanging out in there. I slid back the paneled sides, got in with my light, pulled them together, and felt secure against the vigilance of Heathcliff and everyone else. The ledge where I placed my candle had a few mildewed books piled up. Obviously, a lot of people hadn't been around, things hadn't been cleaned. It was covered with writing scratched on the ledge, rather. This writing, however, was nothing but a name repeated in all kinds of characters, large and small. Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Linton. In vapid lucidness. So he's not exactly in his right brain, and this is going to perhaps factor in what happens later. He kept reading it, spelling over Catherine Earnshaw, Heathcliff, Linton, till my eyes closed. But they had not rested 5 minutes when a glare of white letters started from the dark as vivid as specters. The air swarmed with Catherines. Why, hello there, everyone that's coming in. Let's talk about the real story of Wuthering Heights and how awesome it is, and how awesome you all are, my chat. Thank you for being here. We have Mr. Lockwood coming into this room and seeing Catherine Linton, Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Earnshaw, very much like a girl would scribble in her diary, but instead she is scribbling on the ledge. Why, look who it is. It is Snorta Poopus Cooper. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a member. Hello, hello. We love our animals here at Miss Martin Muses. And even though you were a polar bear, I know that you would have done something about all those dogs and crazy animals and dead rabbits, etc., that were in the last chapter. There is some seriously sick stuff in this book. There's enough sick stuff, rather, to make it a good story. I mean, you don't have to go sick in the other way. And when I say sick, you're going to see. This is all about passions and the mind and what love will do, or rather what hate will do, what abuse will do. It's a very, very good story, and obviously an incredible masterpiece. Why, we have Bone 305. We love our animals. We have a polar bear, and now we have a cat in the chat. So good to see you. He's giving me some coffee and a rose. Why, that is lovely. I love coffee and I love roses, though I have had to cut out caffeine in my life because it's not good for me, and stress and all of that jazz. So sadly, no more caffeine for Miss Martin Muses, but thank goodness we have decaf, because if we did not, what a sad world it would be for me. And I hope you all are doing very, very well. And yes, you can become a member of Miss Martin Muses for 99 cents to help support the channel, and you will get shout outs and stuff. So that is what we are doing here. So anyways, we have him, and the air is swarming with Catherines. I discovered my candle wick reclining on one of the antique volumes and perfuming the place with an odor of roasted calf skin. He snuffs it out. Yeah, it's amazing that everyone didn't just burn down everything back then with these candles and things. But yeah, now we're smelling like calf skin because he nearly set the whole place on fire. Dude, be more careful with your candle. Jeannie Mac. And what was the injured tome? It was a testament. Catherine Earnshaw, her book, and a date some quarter of a century back. We know that there is a Catherine at home. There is a Catherine Heathcliff, but obviously this is not the same Catherine. This Catherine called herself on 3 different names: Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Linton, and Catherine Earnshaw. I shut it, took up another, till I had examined all. Catherine's library was select, and its state of dilapidation proved it to have been well used. Hey, I've got lots of books like that. Hell, you should see some of my copies of my books. At the top of an extra page, quite a treasure probably when first lighted on. I was greatly amused to behold an excellent caricature of my friend Joseph, rudely yet powerfully sketched. Yeah, so they were having some naughty fun, making fun of Joseph. And now he says, I'm just wanting to really learn about this unknown Catherine. And he starts to read it all. An awful Sunday. I wish my father were back again. Hindley is a detestable substitute. His conduct to Heathcliff is atrocious. H and I are going to rebel. So this is our first hint about what's going on in this very weird house. Dad is dead. Hindley, who's Hindley? We don't know, is a detestable substitute. His conduct toward Heathcliff is atrocious. So we know that Heathcliff is being ill used. Snortopupus is leaving us. It's time for a furry bear nap. Hey, I'm not too far behind you. Have a fun stream. Why, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I love Wuthering Heights. Such a good book. I wish, dang it, we didn't have copyright issues because I just want to keep singing the Kate Bush song, Heathcliff. It's me, Kathy. I've come home. That's what we're going to see here. Maybe I can do that in one of my shorts. All day had been flooding with rain. Yeah, rain all the time. I would be so depressed if I lived here. We could not go to church. So Joseph must needs get up a congregation in the garret. So I guess in the basement and she's like, a garret sounds more like a dungeon. While Hindley and his wife bathed downstairs before a comfortable fire. Oh, maybe it's not in the basement. What do I know? So we know that Hindley has a wife and they're downstairs before the fire. They don't have to go to this weird church. Well, not weird church, but this improvised congregation doing anything but reading their Bibles. I'll answer for it. Heathcliff, myself, and the unhappy plowboy were commanded to take our prayer book. So there was another servant in Mount. We were ranged in a row on a sack of corn, growing and shivering, and hoping that Joseph would shiver too, so that he might give us a short homily for his own sake. A vain idea. The service lasted precisely 3 hours. Dang. Tell you what, I've only been to a mass that lasted 3 hours. Once it was the Pope Mass at St. Peter's with John Paul II. But yeah. And it's all cold and miserable. No wonder everyone died of pneumonia and ear infections and all sorts of consumption. And yet my brother had the face to exclaim, so Hindley is her brother. What? Done already? I'd have smacked him. On Sunday evenings, we used to be permitted to play. You forget you have a master here, says the tyrant. I'll demolish the first who puts me out of temper. I insist on perfect sobriety and silence. Oh boy, was that you? Francis, darling, pull his hair as you go. Dang. So she calls him a tyrant and then tells Francis, that's his wife, to pull Heathcliff's hair. Physical abuse. Francis pulled his hair heartily. What a bunch of psychos. And then went and seated herself on her husband's knee. And there they were, like two babies, kissing and talking nonsense by the hour. So they definitely are in love, Francis and Hindley. He calls her Francis darling. And Catherine is saying that they should be ashamed of themselves. We should be ashamed that they're doing this. So what have we established? We have Hindley and his wife, Frances. They're all in love and all kissing all over the place. That they're abusive to Heathcliff, pulled his hair. And this, I think, is part of the atrocious behavior that Catherine is talking about. They had to sit through a 3-hour service with Joseph. So Joseph is doubtless a religious dude, but man, making kids do that, that's weird. So we made ourselves as snug as our means allowed in the arch of the dresser. I believe that is where Lockwood is right now. So we're starting to see maybe why Heathcliff doesn't want anybody in there. Why, hello, everyone coming in. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses. If you have seen the movie, let me know. If you've seen some of this really, really messed up stuff, let me know what you think about it. We still have not even gotten to Catherine and Heathcliff, or rather, we're first hearing their names as they were when they were young, and the new Catherine, Catherine Earnshaw, in her diary. I had just fastened our pinafores together and hung them up for a curtain, safe space, when in comes Joseph. He tears down my handiwork, boxes my ears. Man, she's getting beat. And then they talk in his Yorkshire dialect, which I can't even read. But basically, it looks like it's something like, you don't mess up the Sabbath. I'm going to give the gospel to you, lugs. Shame on you. Shame on you. Sit down and think of yourselves, probably your sins. So he compelled us to square positions that we might receive from the far off fire a dull ray to show us the text of the lumber he thrust upon us. So far off fire. So now he's keeping these poor kids cold. I could not bear the employment. This is Kathy. I took my dingy volume by the scoop and hurled it into the dog kennel, vowing I hated a good book. Heathcliff kicked his to the same place. Then there was a hubbub. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Though you can see why Catherine feels this way. And you see how they are acting in concert. Actually, from here on out, I will always refer to her as Kathy because I think that's a lot easier. That Kathy is Catherine Earnshaw Linton, and her daughter is Catherine. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. Master Henley, master, come hither. Miss Kathy's riven the back off the helmet in salvation, and Heathcliff paused to fit and do something I cannot. They're all going to the broad way to destruction. Basically saying these kids are evil and they're going to hell. Well, throwing the Bible like that is probably not the best idea. However, she's being driven to it. I mean, how could you have a positive view of religion if this is your only experience of it? And so Henry hurried up from his paradise on the hearth. That's where he is with his wife, kissing. Obviously in love, they probably have a nice marital relations too. And seizing one of us by the collar and the other by the arm, hurled both into the back kitchen. Again, abuse. Where Joseph said some stuff that I cannot understand. And we each sought a separate nook to await his advent is coming. So I guess they're going to be punished seriously. So they were separately in a different nook. I reached this book and a pot of ink from a shelf and pushed the house door ajar to give me light. Gloomy dark. Gosh, she would have been so depressing. Or depressed, rather. And I have got the time on with writing for 20 minutes. So this is where she's writing. But my companion is impatient, that's Heathcliff, and proposes that we should appropriate the dairy woman's cloak and have a scamper on the moors. Escape. You see, the moors to them is a safe place. And she even calls it a shelter. A pleasant suggestion. Then if the surly man come in, he may believe his prophecy verified. They're all gone to hell. We cannot be damper or colder in the rain than we are here. Yeah, so you're cold and damp inside the so-called shelter, but the moors are the same, maybe even less. Now we're back to Lockwood, because Lockwood was reading this and began to nod drowsily over the dim page. So he's kind of fallen asleep as he's reading this. He already fell asleep a little bit when he was looking at all the Catherine names, Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Linton. So he's beginning to read some more and saw a title, 70 times 7. This is a reference to the Sermon on the Mount no, it's not the Sermon on the Mount. It's one of what Jesus says when he is asked, how many times should I forgive my enemy? And he says 70 times 7, which is basically saying infinitely. You should always forgive. There's some themes here for the rest of the book here about forgiveness. Unlimited forgiveness, and perhaps what happens when you do not. and the first of the 71st. Now, the first of the 71st, that is referring to the unforgivable sin. So, two things: the unforgivable sin, and you should forgive infinitely. It's by a big sermon by some guy called James Branderham in the chapel of Gimmerden Sow. I do not know if that is significant or not, but maybe someone could tell me. At this, he finally falls asleep. Then he goes, "Alas, for the effects of bad tea and bad temper. What else could make it? What else could it be that made me pass such a terrible night? I don't remember another that I can at all compare with it since I was capable of suffering." So he's saying some crap's about to go down. And it is. I began to dream. Dream. This is significant. So maybe what's going to happen isn't real. It's just a bad dream. Or is it? I ceased to be sensible of my locality. Dude didn't know where he was. I thought it was morning, and I'd set out on my way home with Joseph for a guide. The snow lay yards deep in our road, and we floundered on, and my companion wearied me with constant reproaches that I had not brought a pilgrim's staff, telling me I could never get into the house without one, and boastfully flourishing a heavy-headed cudgel. So the diary is definitely affecting his dreams. For a moment, I considered it absurd that I should need such a weapon to gain admittance into my own residence. Then a new idea flashed across me. I was not going there. We were journeying to hear the famous James Branderham preach from 70 times 7, and either Joseph the preacher or I had committed the first of the 71st and were to be publicly exposed and excommunicated. So forgiveness, unlimited forgiveness, then the unforgivable sin. Of course, what happens with the unforgivable sin? Publicly exposed and excommunicated. Well, not going to go too deep here. Now, she was Church of England, so that means something a little bit different. But so I think in this case, it's talking about the true sense of it, the mortal sin. The mortal sin that means you cannot enter heaven. You cannot enter heaven under unrepented mortal sin. And you must forgive your brother before you go and receive your altar. So forgiveness and not committing mortal sin is part of how you gain heaven. We came to the chapel, rather gain heaven, that's the wrong word. We all know it's free gift of grace, etc. I'd passed it really in my walks thrice or twice. So he'd already seen the chapel. It lies in a hollow. Check out this church between two hills, an elevated hollow near a swamp whose peaty moisture is said to answer all the purposes of embalming on the few corpses deposited there. This is also going to be a thing for later. I've talked about how even people from prehistoric times have been discovered completely fossified because of the peat. So there's a chapel, there's a graveyard, and that people that are buried there are preserved. It says embalming the few corpses. The roof had been kept whole, but as a clergyman's stipend is only 20 pounds per annum, and a house with 2 rooms threatening speedily to determine into one, no clergyman will undertake its duties of pastor. So there is no pastor there, only 20 pounds per year in a small house. Though, come on, suck it up and be a nice guy. Can anyone make a little bit of sacrifice? Well, I've got an opinion on some of that because I forgot that they do have married clergy, and that could be an issue. I could see how a chick wouldn't want to live there. Especially, it is currently reported that his flock would rather let him starve than increase the living by 1 penny. Yeah, so obviously the people around there are not exactly religious, and they're definitely not going to give money. We're still in the dream. And that James had a full and attentive congregation, and he preached. Good God, what a sermon. Divided into 490 parts. Yikes. Each discussing a separate sin. So 490 sins. Where he searched for them, I cannot tell. He had his private manner of interpreting the phrase. and it seemed necessary the brother should sin different sins on every occasion. When I was a kid and I read this, when I say kid, I was 13. I thought this part was useless. I'm like, well, what are we doing here? Obviously, this is meaning things. We're talking sin, some serious sin, but not the sicko crap that was in the movie. I mean, there's enough disturbing things, but we remember that these things are all about the wildness of nature and the wildness of passion, and definitely the wildness of bad people and what they can inflict on those that they love, or even those they don't love. The effects of abuse, the effects of neglect. And then this guy is saying, these are odd transgressions that I had never imagined previously. Oh, how weary I grew, yawned and nodded. So he's coming probably in and out of sleep. I've done that before. He was wanting it to be over. But I was condemned to hear all. Finally, he reached the first of the 71st, the unforgivable sin. At that crisis, a sudden inspiration descended upon me. I was moved to rise and denounce James Branderham as the sinner of the sin that no Christian need pardon. Yeah, he stood up and condemned the pastor of the unforgivable sin. Sir, I exclaimed, within these four walls, I've endured and forgiven the 490 heads of your discourse. 70 times 7 have I plucked up my hat and been about to depart. 70 times 7 have you preposterously forced me to resume my seat. The 491st is too much. One sin too many. Fellow martyrs, have at him. Drag him down and crush him to atoms, that this place which knows him may know him no more. Yikes. He's wanting them all to just tear him to pieces. Luckily, this is just a dream. But man, what is going on in a person self-conscious? I mean, I've been through some very long sermons that I wanted to end. Well, okay. Oh, I'll admit it. I'm not a liar. Sometimes you're either starting to glaze over, and it's so relaxing inside a church, especially, in the Catholic churches. I mean, they're so beautiful and so nice. So, yes, we have all wanted some sermons to maybe wind up a little bit. Thou art the man, cried Japes after a solemn pause, leaning over his cushion. 70 times 7 didst thou gapingly contort thy visage. 70 times 7 did I take counsel with my soul. Lo, this is human weakness. This also may be absolved. The first of the 71st is to come, the unforgivable sin. All right, I won't keep Catholic explaining that one. The first of the 71st. Brethren, execute upon him the judgment written. Such honor have all his saints. Basically, be thrown into hell. With that concluding word, the whole assembly, exulting their pilgrim staves, rushed round me in a body, and I, having no weapon to raise in self-defense, commenced grappling with Joseph, my nearest and most ferocious assailant. Yeah, so they're beating each other up. In the confluence of the multitude, several clubs crossed, blows aimed at me. Man, it's a melee. Presently, the whole chapel resounded with rappings and counter rappings. Every man's hand was against his neighbor. This is chaos. Branderham, the pastor, unwilling to remain idle, poured forth his zeal in a shower of loud taps on the boards of the pulpit, which responded so smartly that at last, to my unspeakable relief, they woke me. Thank goodness, wake up from that dream. See, that's where I'd be like, I'm never drinking ever again. Ever again. And what was that suggested the tremendous tumult which had played Jape's part in the row? I was like, yeah, where'd that come from? Merely the branch of a fir tree that touched upon my lattice. Yeah, so there is a tree that's knocking against the window. I immediately thought of Poltergeist. When the tree comes in and gets him. So now we have a branch of a fir tree that's tapping on the window as the blast wailed by and rattled its dry cones against the panes. And then he goes back to sleep again. and dream something even more, something worse. This time I remembered I was lying in the oak closet and I'd heard distinctly the gusty wind and the driving of the snow. I heard also the fir bough repeat its teasing sound and ascribed it to the right cause. But it annoyed me so much that I resolved to silence it if possible. And I rose and endeavored to unhasp the casement. Again, is this completely a dream or is he in and out of dreams? Or is it real from a certain point of view? I must stop it, I muttered, knocking my knuckles through the glass and stretching an arm out to seize the branch. Now, if I'm thinking right, does this guy, yeah, go right through the glass, man. You could cut an artery or whatever's in your hand. I don't know. My fingers closed instead. Oh, you see, this is so creepy. Do not read this at night. On the fingers of a little ice cold hand. Dun, dun, dun. The intense horror of nightmare came over me. I tried to draw back my arm, but the hand clung to it, and a most melancholy voice sobbed, "Let me in! Let me in! Who are you?" I struggled, meanwhile, trying to disengage myself. "Catherine Linton," it replied shiveringly. Why did I think of Linton? I had read Earnshaw 20 times for Linton. This is like, maybe it's real. I don't know. "I'm come home. I'd lost my way on the moor." Sorry, I just immediately thought of the Kate Bush song. As it spoke, I discerned obscurely a child's face looking through the window. Terror made me cruel, and finding it useless to attempt shaking the creature off, I pulled its wrists on the broken pane. Gosh, and rubbed it to and fro till the blood ran down and soaked the bedclothes. Still it wailed, let me in, and maintained its tenacious gripe, almost maddening me with fear. I'd be more than mad with fear. "How can I said at length, "let me go, if you want to let you in." The fingers relaxed. I snatched mine through the hole, hurriedly piling the books up in a pyramid against it. That's what he should have done to the door to keep Heathcliff out. And stopped my ears to exclude the lamentable prayer. Yeah, the let me in, let me in. Ooh. And then he says it's about 15 minutes later and he listens and the doleful cry was still going on. So let me in for that long. That's a long time. "Be gone," I shouted. "I'll never let you in, not if you beg for 20 years. "It's 20 years, mourned the voice. 20 years. I've been a waif for 20 years. See, it's a detail like that that makes me think maybe it's real. Thereat began a feeble scratching outside, and the pile of books moved as if thrust forward. We're totally in a horror movie now. I tried to jump up, but could not stir a limb, and so yelled aloud in a frenzy of fright. To my confusion, I discovered the yell was not ideal. That's a way of saying that was not a good idea. Hasty footsteps approached my chamber door. Someone pushed it open with a vigorous hand, and a light glimmered through the squares at the top of the bed. I sat shuddering still. The intruder appeared to hesitate and muttered to himself. At last, he said in a half whisper, plainly not expecting an answer, "Oh, something like this happened before? Is anyone here?" I considered it best to confess my presence, for I knew Heathcliff's accents and feared he might search further if I kept quiet. Yeah, he didn't want Heathcliff finding him the hard way. Heathcliff stood near the entrance in his shirt and trousers with a candle dripping over his finger, ouch, and his face as white as the wall behind him. The first creak of the oak startled him like an electric shock. The light leaped from his hold to a distance of some feet, and his agitation was so extreme that he could hardly pick it up. "It is only your guest, sir," I called out. "I had the misfortune to scream in my sleep, owing to a frightful nightmare. I'm sorry I disturbed you." "Oh, God confound you, Mr. Lockwood. I wish you were at the—" commenced my host, settling the candle on a chair because he found it impossible to hold it steady. And who showed up and who showed you up to this room?" He continued, crushing his nails into his palms and grinding his teeth. Yeah, he is not happy about this. "Who was it? I've a good mind to turn them out of the house this moment." "It was your servant Zillah," I replied. Way to throw her under the bus. Flinging myself onto the floor and rapidly resuming my garments. So he's getting himself dressed. He's getting the hell out of here. "I should not care if you did, Mr. Heathcliff. She richly deserves it. I suppose she wanted to get another proof that the place was haunted at my expense. Well, it is, swarming with ghosts and goblins. You have reason in shutting it up, I assure you. No one will thank you for a doze in such a den." "What do you mean?" asked Heathcliff. "And what are you doing? Lie down and finish out the night, since you are here. But for heaven's sake, don't repeat that horrid noise. Nothing could excuse it unless you were having your throat cut." So that was one hell of a scream. "If the little fiend had got in at the window, she probably would have strangled me," I returned. "I'm not going to endure the persecutions of your hospitable ancestors again. Was it not the Reverend James Branderham akin to you on the mother's side, and that minx, Catherine Linton or Earnshaw, or however she was called? She must have been a changeling, wicked little soul." Oh boy, little he knows. You don't, oh boy, you don't talk like that to Heathcliff about Catherine. "She told me she had been walking the earth these 20 years, a just punishment for her mortal transgressions, I have no doubt." Scarcely were these words uttered when I recollected the association of Heathcliff with Catherine's name in the book. Yeah, you dumbass. Which had completely slipped my memory till thus awakening. I blushed at my inconsideration, but without showing further consciousness of the offense, I hastened to add, "The truth is, sir, I passed the first night in here." I stopped afresh. I was about ready to say, perusing those old volumes. Yeah, I've been reading the whole time, all night, reading this chick's diary. Yeah, someone's private diary. Then it would have revealed my knowledge of their written as well as printed contents also. So correcting myself, I went on. "And spelling over the name scratched on the window ledge. Not entirely a lie. A monotonous occupation calculated to set me asleep like counting, or what can you mean in talking this way to me?" thundered Heathcliff with savage vehemence. How dare you under my roof? God, he's mad to speak so." And he struck his forehead with rage. Dude's hitting himself. Ooh. I did not know whether to resent this language or pursue my explanation, but he seemed so powerfully affected that I took pity and proceeded with my dreams, affirming I had never heard the appellation of Catherine Linton before. Oops. Shouldn't, don't remind him of that before, but reading it often overproduced an impression which personified itself when I had no longer my imagination under control. So he's kind of trying to say, yeah, I just read the thing and then I had a dream. It's all right. Heathcliff gradually fell back into the shelter of the bed. So this is a bed that is a shelter for him. He was almost concealed behind it. But his breathing at this point, he's hearing is ragged, it's irregular, and he's trying to like overcome what she says here is a violent emotion. And Lockwood's starting to be like, I don't want him to know that I'm hearing this, that I'm seeing this. I hate everything. And so he got the hell out of here. "I'm going to go. Bye." Not 3 o'clock yet. 3 o'clock, the witching hour. I could have taken oath that had been sick. Time stagnates here, so time just stands still. We must surely have retired to rest at 8. It's always 9 in the winter and rise at 4. And he's groaning. This guy has an issue. And Lockwood thinks that he sees him dashing a tear from his eye. Wow, dude's crying? "Mr. Lockwood," he added, "you may go into my room. You'll only be in the way coming downstairs so early, and your childish outcry is sent sleep to the devil for me." Dude's not going to sleep. Now, some of these things, like for saying things like to the devil and all of that, not too intense for us, but that's pretty strong language. So this is why they really could not comprehend that a woman had written this, because they didn't often look at women as women back then, or, women didn't show that side of themselves. Even that is true today. And for me too, I replied, I'll walk in the yard till daylight, then I'll be off, and you need not dread a repetition of my intrusion. In other words, I ain't ever coming back. I am now quite cured of seeking pleasure in society, be it country or town. Hey, I can relate to this. A sensible man ought to find sufficient company in himself. Delightful company, muttered Heathcliff. Take the candle and go where you please. I shall join you directly. Keep out of the yard, though. The dogs are unchained. Yikes. We don't want dogs coming after him again. Hello, everyone coming in. Things are about to hit the hay. Not to hit the hay, hit the fan. But away with you. I'll come in 2 minutes. I obeyed. So he gets the hale out of there. So far as to quit the chamber when ignorant where the narrow lobbies led. So he's kind of out there going, oh crap, where am I? So he's standing still and witnessed, as it says, involuntarily to a superstition on the part of my landlord, which belied oddly his apparent sense. So he's going to be something completely out of character for Heathcliff up to this point. He got onto the bed, wrenched open the lattice, threw open the window, bursting into an uncontrollable passion of tears. Dude is bawling, crying, sobbing. Come in, he sobbed. Kathy, do come. Oh, do once more. Oh, my heart's darling, hear me this time. Catherine, at last. The spectre showed a spectre's ordinary caprice. It gave no sign of being, but the snow and wind whirled wildly through, even reaching my station, blowing out the light. There was such anguish in the gush of grief that accompanied this raving. Dude's mad with grief that my compassion made me overlook its folly. So even at this point, even though he knows who Heathcliff is, seeing him like that, even he had compassion on him. It's like, man, dude. I drew off, half angry to have listened at all, and vexed at having related my ridiculous nightmare. He said, dang, I wish I hadn't said anything, since it produced that agony, though why was beyond my comprehension. So he gets down to the kitchen and goes down to the fire to get his candle lit, and nothing was stirring except a brindled gray cat, which crept from the ashes and saluted me with a querulous mew. Oh boy, do I know about that about a cat. Though most likely the cat wants to be fed when that happens. And so he stretches himself out on the bench there. And then eventually Joseph, he sees coming around, and he casts a sinister look at the little flame. And he's just hanging out there. They're all getting up, long story short. And then a more elastic footstep entered next. And look who it is. It's Hareton Earnshaw, not Hindley, Hareton. And he was getting all ready with a bunch of whole curses directed at every object he touched. That's how I feel in the morning before I am fully awake. And, coffee. Oh, gosh. I'll tell you the big sad story about coffee I already mentioned. I glanced over the back of the bench, dilating his nostrils, as thought as little of exchanging civilities with me as with my companion, the cat. And so he gets up to kind of follow him. It's like, okay, I guess it's morning now. And everyone's just kind of grunting and being grumpy and cursing. It opened and then he went into the house where the females, I love it, the females were already astir. Zillah urging flakes of flame up the chimney, Mrs. Heathcliff kneeling at the hearth, reading a book by the aid of the blaze. Yeah, so Catherine Heathcliff, Mrs. Catherine Heathcliff, is the one that she's just always reading books, most likely because she has to retreat into the books because her life is so miserable. And so she's absorbed in it. She's trying to get heat. There's the dog. She's pushing away the dog. I was surprised to see Heathcliff there also. It's like, dude, he recovered fast. He stood by the fire, his back toward me, just finishing a stormy scene to poor Arzila, who ever and anon interrupted her labor to pluck up the corner of her apron and heave an indignant groan. So he's given her hail for letting Lockwood into that room. And you worthless, he broke out as I entered, turning to his daughter-in-law, gonna be verbally abusing her again, no doubt. Um, oh, and then he employed an epithet, generally represented by a dash. In other words, dude said a really naughty word, one that was so naughty that vicious that Emily Bronte did not write it down, but just said it's usually with a dash. That would be the equivalent of us saying it should have been bleeped out. There you are at your idle tricks again. The rest of them do earn their bread. You live on my charity. Put your trash away and find something to do. You shall pay me for the plague of having you eternally in my sight. Do you hear, damnable jade? What a jerk. I'll put my trash away because you can make me if I refuse, answered the young lady, closing her book and throwing it on the chair. But I'll not do anything, though you should swear your tongue out, except what I please. Heathcliff lifted his hand, so apparently he's ready to hit her. And the speaker sprang to a safer distance, obviously acquainted with its rate. So this is him saying she's been hit before. Anyone who wants to have any kind of sympathy for Heathcliff, Emily Bronte does not allow us to have it too long. And at this point, Lockwood's like, I want to get out of here. But he did make himself known. He says each had the decorum to suspend further hostilities. So he kind of stopped Heathcliff from hitting her. Heathcliff placed his fists into his pockets. Mrs. Heathcliff curled her lip and walked to a seat far off, where she kept her word by playing the part of a statue during the remainder of my stay. Again, that's another sign of abuse. She knows I got to sit still, I got to stand still so he won't hit me. Not unlike if you're around a wild beast. You stand still so that they'll go away. I declined to join their breakfast. Hell yeah, I wouldn't eat with these people. And the first gleam of dawn took an opportunity of escaping into free air, now clear and still and cold as impalpable. I won't say that word, it's long. And I'm going to stumble over it. So the air is free outside of there. In a way that the moors were free. Being outside was free. If you're away from Wuthering Heights, it's a safe place. The landlord hallooed for me to stop, that is, Heathcliff, to accompany me across the moors. He offered. Well, that's not so bad. He's not completely evil. He doesn't want him to die. It is well that he did, for the whole hill back was one billowy white ocean. And he goes on to say that there's many pits and stuff that are filled to the level. So if he was going to walk, it'd be very, very, very possible that he would fall in and maybe never be found again. And let's see. I remarked on one side of the road there's a line of upright stones, continued the whole length of the barren. These were erected and daubed with lime on purpose to serve as guides in the dark. So he found that there are some things to help you, but he's just not familiar with it. We exchanged little conversation, and he halted at the entrance of Thrush Park, saying I could make no error there. Yeah, so it's like he can't go in. It's almost like, oh, we got you holy water, or you blessed chalk that he cannot pass. It's like, here you are. You're not going to get lost now. Our adieus were limited to a hasty bow. Then I pushed forward, trusting my own resources, for the porter's lodge is as untenanted as yet. The distance from the gate to Grange is 2 miles. I managed to make it 4, what with losing myself. So even then, he was getting lost and sinking up to the neck in snow. So if that's what happens when he's in a safe area, imagine what would have happened if he'd have tried it out on the moors. At any rate, whatever were my wanderings, the clock chimed 12 as I entered the house. All right, so we had the witching hour when Kathy was at the window, and now the clock chimed 12 noonday as he enters the house, and that gave exactly an hour for every mile of the usual way from Wuthering Heights. My human fixture and her satellites rushed to welcome me. The human fixture is the maid, the housekeeper that he says it's like a fixture of the house, but she's human. They all came running out, exclaiming they'd completely given me up. Yeah, they thought the dude was dead. and they were wondering how they must set about the search for my remains. Yeah, that's what they'd been doing over breakfast. Well, I guess he's dead. He didn't last long. How the heck are we going to find his remains in all this snow? I bid them quiet that they saw me returned. And what? And benumbed to the very heart. Yeah, dude's cold. I dragged upstairs whence, after putting on dry clothes and pacing to and fro 30 or 40 minutes to restore the animal heat, I adjourned to my study, feeble as a kitten, almost too much so to enjoy the cheerful fire and smoking coffee which the servant had prepared for my refreshment. So he's in a happier place. He's able to be warm. He's restoring the animal heat. He's turning back into a human. And though he's feeble as a kitten, he had a cheerful fire and a smoking coffee. So happier things. And I would now want a cheerful smile, fire and smoking coffee. Oh, that's so good. And now he's all warmed up. So that is chapter 3. Now, I would give this chapter, dagnabbit, I'd give this chapter like a 10 out of 10. The scene with Heathcliff at the window is so iconic and sobbing for Kathy. In the Kate Bush song, it is done from the point of view of Kathy. And it wrenches your heart. And she even sings in a way that it just sounds like a ghost coming in. Again, a dream, or is it a dream? Emily Bronte gives us enough hints it could be both, but also that it is just merely a dream because he fell asleep so many times on and off. Lockwood did. On the other hand, are things that happen in dreams real? Are they more real than not? And if you are in a dream, you're between the living and the dead, if you will. Perhaps you're on another plane. So maybe through the dream, that's where it happened. Now, Heathcliff had been wanting her to haunt him for so long. And he's sobbing, come in, at last, at last. So that scene is just so famous. And all the background, the forgiveness for 70 times 7, unforgivable sin is going to play into everything, including the preservation of bodies in the graveyard. So that's that. Well, I want to thank everyone that has come in. Now, one of the perks that you do get if you are a member, well, we had Snortopupus Kubur. He made himself known, and so did Ben 305. Thank you. But Snortopupus Kubur is a member of House Rose. He is a muser of House Rose, and I'm going to get my nephew to come up with maybe a cooler sticker, but I just can't figure it out. So he does not have an active channel, but here is his Twitter. Also, a thanks to Deepo101 and Sean Sue for being members. We also have member Prophet of the Dragon. He's going to be, and here is his YouTube channel. He is the lucky man who did an interview with none other than Jim Butcher, the writer of the Dresden Files, Salty Traveling Sea. Is also a member of House Rose. Oh yeah, I need to come up with arms for House Rose. And I don't want to do it with AI. I might actually hire an artist. If anyone knows one that's half decent and, well, I can check their fares. I mean, I will pay a fair price. The gentleman, sadly, who did a lot of work for me, he's the one who came up with Miss Martin Muses and the banner. He sadly passed away tragically from cancer. So I definitely miss him a lot. It was, of course, Xevious. I guess it's okay to say his real name now instead of Doc. So never mind, I won't. I'll honor him in death. I don't have his permission, so I won't say it. But his name was Xevious. That's how we knew him. And the Miss Martin icon that you see was done by, oh gosh, I forget his name. And it's based on the whole theology of the rose. with little flour and mixed with the Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross, which is very important to me. So these are the perks that you will get that I can offer to you. And if I do videos, you will also get early access. So only one tier right now. Well, look who is coming in. We now have 6 people in the chat. Did you see the movie? Did it suck as much as I've heard? Was it as just the opening scene. Just the opening scene is enough to just make you hurl. Literally hurl. And I'm not a prude, but dang. That just Emily Bronte is literally turning in her grave, or Bronte. I don't know how they pronounced it because obviously it's kind of a French sounding name, Bronte, but maybe the English people said Bronte. I don't know. So if I'm doing it wrong, please forgive me. And let me know, have you been watching The Night of the Seven Kingdoms? If you have been, oh my gosh. Isn't it awesome? If you haven't, shame on you. My dad and mom, we watched it all together, all 3 of us. Mom is familiar with The World of Ice and Fire. My dad is not, and my dad enjoyed it. He said he probably wouldn't have watched it on his own, but he enjoyed it. He loved The Trial of 7. Now, the way we did The Trial of 7, we watched it where we just skipped the flashback, and that's the way everyone should do it. Just pretend the flashback didn't happen. We might, mom and I, watch it as a side quest, but even after it was all over, they were like, why was there a flashback? My mom actually was so indignant because then I told her we only got 10 minutes of the next episode that we're going to watch because of the 20-minute flashback. She literally said, "Are you shitting me?" She was so mad. So in any case, yeah, it sucks. But it is what it is. But other than that, it is amazing. So watch it that way. Read The Hedge Knight. You will not regret it. And maybe you'll start to understand why people like me, like, why is such an amazing Tolkien fan, or rather a big Tolkien fan, rather, I don't know if I'm amazing or not, loving these works too. Well, a lot of people haven't read the works, obviously. I just seeing so many people being so shocked, like, George R. Martin wrote this? And all of us are going, oh my gosh. And of course, he is George R. Martin is a number 1 fan of Tolkien. He loves him. So you can definitely see that. No, he's not perfect. Like I said, I will let him have it. But right now, he's doing everything right. The only thing he can do better is write Winds of Winter. So in any case, it's time for me to go. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day. And be certain. Whoops, I forgot to preview stuff, but never mind. Just stay tuned. Keep the bell on. I cannot be on a regular schedule, but if you also want my Catholic content, please subscribe to Catholic Explaining, and that is where you can get my Catholic content. Let's see. Be certain to never, ever, ever go to Wuthering Heights without an invitation.